Welcome, new and old friends. I just have a couple things to say, and then the stories will begin. Before you drift off into the dream realm, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. If you'd like to find out about my social links, my website, how to help the channel, check the description box. Now turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. It's time to dream. The Last Halloween by Verlass1. Halloween used to be our favorite night of the year, but as we got older, the magic wore off. The thrill of trick-or-treating was a thing of the past, and haunted houses didn't scare us like they used to. So when Sam suggested we meet at his place to reclaim Halloween last year, we mostly shrugged it off. We were 17. Too old for all that, but hanging out sounded better than spending the night scrolling on our phones. The four of us, Sam, Maya, Ellie, and me, met up in Sam's basement. We tossed around some ideas of watching a horror movie marathon, maybe telling some ghost stories. But then Maya, grinning with a nervous kind of excitement, pulled out something she had been hiding in her backpack. An old, battered Ouija board. This wasn't the cheap plastic kind you get at the store. No, this was something ancient looking, carved from dark wood with letters and symbols scratched in by hand. "Where'd you get that?" I asked, eyeing it warily. Maya shrugged. "Ancient shop near the edge of town. The owner tried to tell me not to buy it, said it had some dark history or something," she said with a laugh. Sam chuckled. "Come on, we're not kids anymore. A board game's not going to scare us." We set the board down on the table, and I felt a chill steal over me. The basement felt darker, colder, as though something had shifted the moment the board appeared. But not wanting to be the one who chickened out, I joined them around the table, placing my fingers on the heavy planchette. I feel the weight of it, cold and strangely rough, pressing against my fingertips. Maya took a deep breath, her voice barely a whisper. "Is anyone with us?" At first, nothing happened. We exchanged glances, half smiling, trying to shake off the creepy sense of dread. But then, slowly, the planchette began to move, dragging our fingers along with it. It spelled out Y-E-S. I tried to pull my hand away, but it felt stuck, as though something cold and invisible was pressing it to the board. The room grew colder, and a sour, stale smell filled the air. Something rotten and damp that made me want to gag. Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice barely audible. The planchette moved again, spelling out F-R-I-E-N-D. The words seemed to mock us, each letter pressing into my mind, chilling me to the core. Ellie tried to laugh it off, but his voice was shaky. "Just some prank. One of you guys is moving it," he muttered, though he looked as terrified as I felt. "What do you mean?" Maya asked, her face pale, her fingers gripping the planchette so tightly her knuckles were white. E-L-A-Y. The air felt like it was pressing in on us, like something unseen was squeezing the life out of the room. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat sending another wave of panic through me, but I couldn't pull away. And then, as though mocking us, the planchette spelled out one more word. S-T-A-Y. I heard a faint noise, a low, almost animalistic growl coming from the dark corner of the basement. The shadows seemed to shift, stretching and twisting. As I looked closer, I realized it wasn't just a shadow. It was something huge slowly forming out of the darkness. The creature stepped into the candlelight, and I felt my stomach drop. It was towering, at least 8 feet tall, shrouded in a tattered hooded cloak that barely concealed its grotesque form. Beneath the hood, I could make out the twisted face of a ram, its horns spiraling out and curling around its head like a crown. The eyes were a deep, burning red, sunken into deep sockets, fixed on us with a hunger that made me want to run and never look back. The torso was disturbingly human, muscular and twisted, but from the waist down, it had the thick, furry legs of a goat, ending in massive, cloven hooves that clacked against the basement floor with every step. Its rancid breath filled the room, the stench so foul I thought I'd be sick. It grinned, showing sharp, yellow teeth that looked like they could tear through bone. "Stay," it hissed, its voice a low, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through my bones, locking me in place. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't obey. The creature reached out, one massive clawed hand closing around Sam's neck, lifting him off the ground as if he weighed nothing. His face turned red, then purple, his eyes wide with terror as he clawed at the creature's grip, his kicking legs useless. There was a sickening crack and his body went limp. The creature dropped into the floor, his lifeless eyes staring up at the ceiling. I felt Maya's hand tighten around mine, but she was frozen too. Her face twisted in horror as the creature turned its gaze to her, its rancid breath washing over us as it whispered, "Play," as the planchette also moved to spell the word. Before I could even think, it reached out, grabbed her by the arm, and yanked her back into the darkness. Her scream echoed in the basement, a raw, desperate sound that was cut off too soon, and then she was gone. Ellie and I moved, one finger finally breaking free from the planchette. We bolted up the stairs, our footsteps pounding, our breaths coming in gasps. Just as Ellie reached the door, he froze. His body twisted as something had gripped him from behind. He let out a strangled scream, his face contorted in agony before he was pulled back down the stairs, disappearing into the darkness. I didn't stop. I tore through the door and into the night, running as fast as my legs would carry me. I didn't look back until I was miles away, collapsing on the sidewalk, my chest heavy, my mind reeling. I went to the police, tried to tell them what happened, but they stared at me, their expression skeptical. They questioned me like I was lying or losing my mind, asking if I had been drinking, if maybe I imagined it all. I could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe me. They never searched the house, never looked for Sam, Maya, or Ellie. Instead, they told me to go home, to just get some rest, and to let it go. But I can't let it go. I can't shake the feeling that the creature is still out there, waiting. This Halloween morning, I felt it watching me from the shadows, heard the faint clank of hooves on concrete, smelled that rancid breath that haunts my nightmares. I know it's only a matter of time. As I left my house this morning, on my front porch was the board. Except this time, there were dark reddish-brown stains on the letters that spelled out each of my friends' names. As I sit here and write this at work, I can feel it behind me. I look down the hallway and I see a shadow behind a corner. It's waiting for me. The heat of the flames closed in as I clutched my daughter to my chest and ran outside. But when I looked back, I saw both of us still standing in the bedroom window as she whispered, "You know smoke kills faster than fire, right, Daddy?" Have We Met Before? By The Lego Man 2. And trigger warning, self-harm. Hello again, or is it just hello? Have we met this time around? There are too many people to remember them all, so forgive me if I forgot your name. I need your help. I don't know how I wound up in this situation, but I seem to have been Groundhog Day'd. I have seen the world end thousands of times, and I need someone to help me. It wasn't world-ending apocalypses initially. It started out with small things. I get hit by a car and die, so next time around I'd wait till the car went past, then cross the street. Just little things like that. After the first 100 or so times around, though, things started to get a little more extreme. The first such example was a man with a knife who charged me and stabbed me to death, so I called the police ahead of time. They made it, stopped him from attacking me, and hit me with a stray bullet when the knife man charged them. After that, I took a different route to the coffee shop. The first time I actually made it to the coffee shop, a gas line exploded when I arrived and killed me, and I assume everyone else there at the same time. After that, I decided to try and leave town, so I went to catch a train, which promptly derailed and took out everyone on the platform as it did so. The strange thing is, though, that I checked the news while I was on the platform, and the gas line didn't explode this time around. That got me thinking, if bad things were only happening to kill me, what if I stayed home and waited out? Well, the only time I tried that, I was the victim of a plane crash in my own living room. I decided my best course of action was to wander the city for the day and do my best to be aware of my surroundings, and wouldn't you know it, they got me further than anything I tried so far, but ultimately failed when we were hit with a chemical weapon strike. At that point, I came to the decision that I should stay away from crowds to minimize casualties. The problem was I didn't own a car, so my options were public transportation or walk, and public transportation hadn't treated me well today. I started walking first thing in the morning. By noon, I was on the city outskirts with lifestyle blocks lining the highway. I made sure to stay well away from any vehicles that I saw on the road. That, of course, didn't stop the bombs from killing me. I turned around after the bright flash, and a couple seconds later, woke up back in my bed. The next few attempts, I tried running, but for the first time, the exact cause of death repeated itself. That's when I realized that the only way to prevent an event was to be safely out of its reach. I spent a few attempts trying to find the most accessible bike I could to borrow. After a few attempts, I found that one of the bikes at the convenience store had been left unlocked. That time, I made it to the next town over. Turns out, they were quite earthquake-prone. It took a few attempts, but I eventually found a safe spot to weather the earthquake. The declaration of war came next. Several war leaders were assassinated all at once, and everyone blamed everyone else. And then the missiles began to fly. And, surprise, surprise, the first nuke hit the town I was in. Interestingly enough, if I didn't go to that town, the war didn't happen. I figured that since I was far enough from the first nuke that I didn't die immediately, then had to be a different cause of death. I had taken to keeping up with the news to try and avoid anything that seemed dangerous. I basically gave up when I saw that a virus had swept across more than half of the continental United States in a matter of hours, leaving very few survivors in its wake. The experts were saying 97% of the population was dead within 5 minutes of first symptoms. And believe me, it was not a comfortable 5 minutes. After that, I tried to break the loop myself a couple times, if you catch my drift. That evidently also didn't work. That's when I had an idea. Scuba gear should have enough oxygen for me to last at least the initial pass of the virus. And if the pattern holds, that meant that it wouldn't happen at all. I was right. I looked like an idiot in a stolen scuba mask, but I was right. That still didn't stop the meteor though, and that's where I've been stuck for the past few hundred days. 3:37 p.m., the world ends. And I don't know if there is any way, aside from breaking the time loop, to stop it. Which brings us to the reason I'm writing this now. I think I have figured out a way to break it. I've spent a few decades at this point studying mythology about time loops, and I think I know which one I'm in. Are you familiar with the concept of purgatory? Well, it's kind of like that, except I'm not dead yet, and it's contagious. It's a punishment, and once I have made amends and atoned for my sins, I believe I will be set free. It also turns out that, by sharing my knowledge, I have spread the reach of this curse. Thank you all for taking on a portion of my suffering and making penance for my sins. If you want my advice, don't dodge the car. It hurts a lot less than the feeling of your lungs liquefying in your chest. Goodbye for now. I'll see you on the next go-around. I watched in disbelief as my religious friend was pulled up the clouds along several others in the crowd, all wearing self-satisfied smiles. Any envy I had was drowned out by the cacophony of horrifying screams as they disappeared behind the cover. Aurora Inn, Security Staff Manual by OopsIbuiltashelfhelp. Notes. Seems like security doesn't have so many rules as they do a dossier for some of the beings that can be found at the inn. Interesting. Hello, new member of Aurora Inn Security Staff. As a member of our esteemed AISS personnel, you are tasked with the responsibilities to situations that arise in our establishment, be it encounters with hostile phenomenon within the inn, or journalists and like persons. Please remember to follow IAPB and rules of entity engagement discussed in your briefing, as Human Resources has begun handing out punishments due to lax enforcements of protocol. Below are regulations you'll have to familiarize yourself with. General Security Guidelines. 1. All members of security must not bring any electronic device to the inn. Members of security must bring with them a small item of sentimental value, i.e. a childhood toy, with them while on duty. Members of security must go to the security observation room connected to the break room and mark their presence on the terminal there. 2. At least 2 members of security must be on standby to respond during an employee head count. The false employee can simply be escorted off the premise for neutralization. 2A. Should the false employee realize it's been discovered, any available member of security staff must respond promptly to dispel it with lethal force. 3. Journalists and healthcare inspectors must be escorted to the basement incinerator before being disposed of. 4. Should a member of security's radio suddenly begin playing music, they are to be disposed of at once by any nearby member of security. Report to the custodial staff that cleanup will be required. 4A. Should the radio not be disposed of in a timely manner and the effects contaminate other electronics, non-contaminated security staff must discard the radios and eliminate all members of staff on duty while wearing proper hearing protection. 5. Should you become overwhelmed with an extreme sense that you're being tested, do not fall for the facade. No member of the HR team wish to test you in this way. Simply retrieve your item of sentimental value and observe it for 3 minutes. During this time, do not look away from it and do not react to external forces. 6. All members of security must travel in groups of 2 exactly. Members of security traveling in groups more or less than 2, outside of emergency situations, should be confronted with contact phrase, and members of security should be prepared for an interloper encounter, should the person fail to respond to the contact phrase. 7. Should a guest require your help, escort them to the front desk, then return to your duty. The majority of entities will not attack you if you are with a guest. 8. Should a door with a black door hanger be reported, intervention may be required by security in order to regain control of the room. Remember, in this state, the room and the entity within it have only one goal: to dispose of you. Lethal force within this room is automatically authorized, as no passive entities inhabit these rooms. 9. Notice, entities within the inn are highly aggressive towards security staff. Any being that does not respond to the contact phrase is likely hostile or will become hostile upon noticing you. 10. When responding to a staff or guest call for security, so long as the call was responded within the manual for the breach of personnel, the rule of entity engagement may be disregarded, as force most likely will be needed. 10A. Once the entity has been removed from the premise, report that the situation has become safe once again in your radio. 11. The inn should be swept by members of security after A. The all floors music event subsides. B. 6 a.m. C. HR or on-site security manager order. 12. Should an entity of non-hostile nature, as described in the rules of entity engagement, be spotted, please recite the phrase revertis in trauma tuma, and the entity will demanifest. 12A. Should the entity refuse to demanifest, they are to be engaged with lethal force, and backup should be requested, as an interloper is likely to be present in the building. 13. Should an evacuation be necessary for any reason, staff safety is priority over guest safety. Ensure staff are safe via communication and escort before moving on to guests. Outdoor security guidelines. 1. Outdoor patrols during the hours of 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. must be done inside a vehicle, with the headlights off. 2. Should contact with an entity be made while outside, attempt to call for backup and retreat to the entrance, while staying away from light sources. 3. Should a hearse enter the parking lot at exactly 3 a.m., security staff should remain on standby until the front desk has reported the situation. 4. Should you feel compelled to enter the forest during the hours of 12 to 6 a.m. and find you cannot find the willpower to resist the effect, please either let a member of security dispose of you, or dispose of yourself as soon as possible, to prevent collateral. 4A. Please report to the custodial staff where the corpse will be for cleanup. Basement security guidelines. 1. Personnel attempting to break into the basement are to be removed from the basement immediately. Ensure that non-lethal force is used unless they are an entity. 2. Do not investigate any mysterious noises or figures you might hear while patrolling the basement level. 3. Due to HR's team occupying the basement level, please do not look through any non-opaque glass or open doorways. This month's contact phrase is Morse. You are a main line of defense against both prying eyes and threats to staff, and as such, these rules are paramount to ensure Aurora Inn stays in business, and as such, these rules are key to ensure your own, staff, and guest safety. Take care. Aurora Inn Security Management. After being diagnosed with a rare heart condition, I was lucky enough to get a heart transplant from a recently deceased man. Once I got access to the hospital's computers, it wasn't hard to find the address of my closest match. I work night shift at a remote radio station in Idaho. It has strange rules to follow. By Brief Trainer 6751. Have you ever asked yourself why certain rules exist? Rules that feel stitched together, not by logic, but by fear? Like, don't whistle after dark, or never look into a mirror at midnight. They sound like folklore, don't they? The kind of stuff your grandmother whispers to you while locking the doors and pulling the curtains tight. But what if one of those rules wasn't just superstition? What if one of those rules was the only thing standing between you and something you were never meant to hear? Don't answer the second phone after midnight. And that was the exact line printed in bold, underlined red ink on the rule sheet I was handed my first night working at the backwoods radio station. And the worst part, I still don't know who or what was going to be on the other end of that call. I was 26 years old, broke, heartbroken, and running from the shattered mess of a life I had tried to build in Seattle. My engagement had crumbled like wet drywall. So I did what cowards do. I vanished. Drove for hours until I landed in a nowhere town with a name no one remembers. Gardner Hollow. It had one gas station, a sad little diner where everyone stopped talking the moment you walked in, and a forest that felt like it was always watching. The only light at night blinked red at the edge of Main Street, as if warning not to go any further. And that's where I found WZRP 104.6, a forgotten radio station squatting on a lonely hill 7 miles outside town. It looked like it had been built during the Cold War and never updated. Rust clung to the frame like scabs. 2 rooms, a flickering hallway, and the smell of old coffee that had soaked into the walls. They paid in cash, no taxes, no paperwork, no names. Which was perfect, because I didn't want to be found. The guy training me, Darren, looked like he had survived the station, but just barely. His skin was sallow, teeth the color of old ivory. Every few minutes, his eyes would flicker to the clock like he was counting down a bomb. As he left, he handed me a piece of paper. No contact, no instructions, just rules. WZRP Night Shift Rules. Read carefully. Lock both doors by 11:45 p.m. sharp. No exceptions. Don't let anyone in, even if they say they work here. Only play the tapes labeled OK in red. Don't answer the second phone after midnight. If the on-air light turns blue, go to the basement immediately and stay there. If you hear breathing from the transmitter room, turn off the hallway light and wait. Don't leave before 6 a.m., even if your replacement shows up early. I chuckled. It had to be a prank, right? Some kind of hazing ritual Darren pulled on all the newbies. But when I looked up, Darren wasn't smiling. His eyes were dead serious, hollow. "Follow the rules," he rasped, "or you won't last a week." I should have walked out right then, but I was broke, exhausted, and honestly, I just wanted to be left alone. Peace and quiet. That's all I wanted. The first night was eerie, but not unbearable. I played dusty rock tapes, read out weather updates for towns that probably didn't even exist anymore, and tried not to think about the rules. The air smelled faintly of mildew and scorched wires. A hint of something older underneath, like dead things kept in a jar. Still, the real chill came every time I passed the transmitter room. The door was always closed, but I could swear I felt the breeze leaking out from underneath. Cold, like standing in front of an open grave. At exactly 11:45, I locked both doors. First rule checked. Then, at 12:07 a.m., the second phone rang. There were two phones on the desk. One was beige, plastic, ugly, probably from Walmart. The other? Jet black, rotary dial, heavy as sin. It looked like it had once sat on a military desk during DEFCON 1. And that was the one ringing. No caller ID, no reason, just that slow, old-fashioned ring that hits something deep in your spine, like the sound didn't belong in the world anymore. I froze. 7 times it rang. 7 times. I sat there trying not to breathe. Then it stopped. Exhausted like I just surfaced from deep water. I had no idea I'd been holding my breath that long, but I hadn't answered. That was the rule, and for now, I was safe. The next few nights felt off, but manageable. Occasionally, I hear static from rooms that weren't broadcasting. I started catching glimpses of movement in the glass reflection, just out of sync with my own, but nothing ever came of it. I told myself it was sleep deprivation, or nerves, or loneliness. But then came night 6. And that was the night when the air changed, when the rules stopped feeling like folklore and started feeling like a warning. Some nights pretend to be normal, right up until they turn on you. That evening started the way the last few had. Quiet, still, and lying to me. I brought the same scratched thermos full of burnt gas station coffee, locked up at 11:45 p.m. sharp, just like the first rule demanded. The place creaked like old bones as I walked the halls, flipping through a stack of tapes with faded labels. Most were garbage. but I found one marked OK Red, the kind I was allowed to play. So I slid it in. Felt safe, almost bored, almost. At exactly 12:02, the black phone rang again. But this time, I didn't jump. Didn't flinch, didn't breathe, just stared. The rotary phone's ring had become part of the landscape by now. Like thunder that never begins rain. It rang 7 times, slow and deliberate. Then, as exact, it died. I turned back to my notes, tried to focus on the music levels, my voice lines, the time check. That's when the air changed. At 12:04, the on-air light turned blue. And just like that, I wasn't bored anymore. My entire body locked up. The hair on my arms stood straight. My mouth went dry like I'd swallowed dust. Blue light. That was on the list. I remembered the rule. If the on-air light turns blue, go to the basement immediately and stay there. Only problem, no one ever showed me where the damn basement was. Panic doesn't hit all at once. It trickles in. First the heartbeat, then the trembling hands, then the voice in your head screaming, "Move." I shot out of the booth. Hallway lights flickered above me like they couldn't make up their minds. I started yanking doors open. One led to a supply closet full of empty tape boxes and dead spiders. Another opened to a restroom so small it barely deserved that name. All the while, the blue light pulsed behind me, steady and unnatural. Not LED, not halogen, more like moonlight if the moon hated you. But this blue light brought a vibration, deep and angry, like the ceiling was holding back a growl. Then I found it. Tucked in the back of the break room behind a half-collapsed tower of audio gear, a rug, faded and stained. Beneath it, a square hatch, old and iron, edge rusted like they had been weeping blood. I yanked it open. The hinges screamed. Did I hesitate? Not for a second. The ladder led straight down into a tight shaft. The cold clung to me immediately. Not the kind of cold you escape with a jacket. The kind that gets inside you. I climbed down anyway, rung after rung, until the hatch above became a square of flickering light, then vanished as I shut it behind me. And then the smell hit me. Damp earth, rusted metal, wet fur, and beneath it all, something sweet, something rotten. The basement wasn't big, just a single square of concrete with a low ceiling. Like the building itself was pressed down to keep something contained. There was a cot in the corner, a filing cabinet long since rusted shut, and a radio, humming softly with static like it was breathing in and out. I stood there, frozen, watching the shadows twitch. Then, after a few minutes, the blue light above clicked off. Suddenly, the vibration was gone. Not stopped. Gone. Like it had never been there at all. But I didn't climb up. Not yet. I waited 5 minutes, 10, The static buzzed like it was whispering something just beneath human hearing. Only when my knees started to lock did I finally climb back up the ladder, one cautious ring at a time. The booth looked the same. At first. Then I saw it. The tape I had been playing was shredded. Not chewed, not worn. Torn. Unspooled like something had tried to rip it apart with their bare hands. Or claws. And then I saw the desk. 3 deep gouges parallel 6 inches long, carved into the wood right next to the mic. Like something had tried to reach through or out. I checked the security cameras, my fingers trembling on the keys. Nothing. Every feed showed stillness, empty hallways, silent doors. But that was the thing. The footage never showed what happened. It only showed what was left behind. I went home that morning and laid in bed without sleeping, staring up at the ceiling as if it could give me answers, but it just stared back. There's a moment in every nightmare when you realize it's not going to end, not this time, not when you wake up, not when the sun rises. That moment hit me around 2:17 a.m. during what I thought would be a quiet shift. Everything had been silent, still, like the station itself was asleep. And then the hallway lights flickered once, then died. Just like that, I was surrounded by shadows. The air thinned, my pulse quickened. I remembered one of the rules. If you hear breathing from the transmitter room, turn off the hallway lights and wait. Only the lights were already off. What I heard wasn't breathing. It was whispering. Dozens of voices, overlapping, broken, and layered like someone had taken 5 radio signals and tangled them together. Some voices were slow, almost corny. Others were fast, like they were trying to warn me before something caught up. But I couldn't make out a single word. Not one. I stayed frozen in my chair, muscles locked, eyes wide, trying not to blink too loud. The whispers swirled around the walls. And then a scratch. From outside the booth. Just a single, slow scrape. Like a fingernail dragging across the glass. I tried to turn to the sound, heart trying to pound through my ribs. The booth lights were off. The stereo beyond the glass looked like a tomb. I flipped the light on. Nothing. No one. Just empty hallway, peeling paint, and darkness that felt thicker than it should. And then I looked again. Smudges. On the outside of the glass, 5 of them, finger marks. Small, too small, like a child's hand. But I was alone. At least, I thought I was. I finished that shift with a knife across my lap and I backed to the wall. Night 8. I arrived early, hoping to catch Darren. Hoping maybe I could ask what the hell I had gotten into. But Darren wasn't there. Instead, there was someone else sitting on the steps in front of the station like she'd been waiting for me. A woman, mid-30s, pale, stringy black hair, hoodie zipped all the way up to her chin, No car, no bag, nothing. Just sitting there. She looked up at me. Are you the night guy? Her voice was flat, like someone had seen too much to be surprised anymore. I didn't answer. She stood. Her eyes were wrong. No white, just black, full pupils, swallowed up every bit of light around them. I used to work here, she said, before they changed the rules. That line hit like a punch. She stepped towards me. I instinctively backed up towards my car, keys gripped tightly in my fist. You shouldn't be here after tonight, she said, voice soft, like she was warning me from a burning building. They're getting stronger. Who? I asked, my voice barely holding together. She didn't answer. Just turned and walked into the woods. No flashlight, no trail, just vanished between the trees like she'd never been there. I waited 5 minutes, eyes locked on the tree line. She never came back out. That night, the black phone didn't ring. But at 3:06 a.m., the other phone did. The beige one, cheap, modern, harmless looking. I stared at it. Technically, the rules never said I couldn't answer that one. So I did. Static. Just for a moment. Then a voice whispered close, like it was behind me, not through the line. You're not following them. Click. The line went dead. I dropped the phone like it was on fire and stared at the rule sheet pinned to the wall. Read it. Twice. Looked for anything I missed. And that's when I saw it. At the very bottom of the page, in tiny, faded print, almost invisible. Every time you survive the blue light, a new rule is added. You must find it before your next shift. What? I flipped the paper over. Nothing. Held it to the lamp, watched the light bleed through the sheet, and there it was. Faded red ink hidden behind the typed text, smudged but legit. I rubbed my thumb over the words, and they rose like bruises. 8. Never say your real name on air. It hears names, it remembers. That's when I realized. The rules weren't just keeping things out. They were keeping me from being seen, from being heard. I broke the 8th rule. Not on purpose, not loudly, just once. But it was enough. And then I heard my own name whispered back to me from inside the transmitter room. I knew. There's no hiding anymore. Have you ever felt the world tilt? Not with motion, but with meaning? Like everything around you is suddenly wrong, and the air itself knows your name? I walked into the station that night with shaking hands and eyes red from another night without sleep. But it wasn't exhaustion gnawing at me. It was fear, raw, creeping, marrow-deep fear. Because I've seen the hidden rule. Never say your real name on air. And I had, every single night. Hey, this is Nate. You're listening to WZRP 104.6. God help me, I fed it. At 12 a.m. sharp, the black phone rang. Same as always, the ancient rotary buzz, slow and deliberate like a countdown. I didn't answer it. I couldn't. Instead, I walked to the break room, pried back the dusty rug, and opened the hatch. The basement. I had to know what was really down there. What I'd been hiding from this whole time. But when I lifted the hatch, something was different. The cot was gone. In its place, carved into the concrete like something had burst from beneath it, was a hole. Not man-made, not natural. Torn, clawed, violent. The jagged edge of the concrete curled upwards like it had melted and ripped at the same time. And the dirt around it was scattered. Not from something coming in, but from something getting out. I stepped back, slowly and shaking. Then the radio hissed. Loud, sharp, alive. And then I heard my own voice. Hey, this is Nate. You're listening to WZRP 104.6, The Pulse of Nowhere, keeping you company through the long, cold night. My exact words from night one, but I hadn't hit play. The tape deck was off. I ran sprinting back to the booth, adrenaline cutting through the fog in my brain. The red on-air light was glowing, normal, calm, lying. I reached for the mic switch to cut the feed, and that's when it changed. The light turned blue. Everything stopped. No static, no hum, no music. Just dead air. And then breathing. Heavy, wet, uneven. But it wasn't coming from the transmitter room this time. It was inside the booth. With me, behind me. I turned, slow, and in the far corner, just past where the shadows meet the wall, was something standing. Tall, thin, barely there, like heat distortion wearing skin. It had no face. But its mouth opened, and inside that mouth were my own teeth. I bolted. Out the door, down the hall, past the transmitter room, past the walls still scarred from claw marks. The building groaned around me. The shadows felt heavier, like they were watching me. I didn't stop. Didn't close the hatch. Didn't climb down. I jumped straight into the basement. The air was colder than before. Colder than death. The blue light above pulsed through the cracks like it was bleeding. Then a thud. Above me. Then another. Something had followed me. It didn't care about the rules anymore. It had been invited. And then in that pitch black basement, my back against the wall, lungs burning, I remembered something. A whisper, barely more than a mumble. Something Darren had said to me my first night. They only get in if you break 3 rules. 3. I counted. 1. I said my name on air. 2. I didn't find the new rule in time. 3. I answered the beige phone. 3. Not just mistakes. keys. Each rule wasn't just a warning. They were locks. And every one I broke turned the key the wrong way. Now the lock was undone. Now the door was open. And something had stepped through. The rules weren't just there to protect me. They were there to contain it. And now it knew my name. I don't remember climbing out of the basement. I don't remember the stairs, the hatch, the door. All I know is I woke in my car, half in a ditch, parked sideways on the gravel road that led to the station. The windshield was cracked. The radio was dead. My hands were covered in blood. Not mine. I stumbled out, lungs aching, head full of static. Looking up towards the hill. WZRP 104.6 was gone. Nothing but a scorched black skeleton silhouette against the dawn. The tower was twisted metal husk. The booth, the hallway, the transmitter room all burned to the ground. But I didn't have a single burn on me. Not even soot. And no one in town said a word about it. I walked into the diner that morning like a man returning from war. The bell above the door jingled like normal. The waitress looked up. Didn't flinch, didn't gasp, just said, "You lasted longer than the last guy." No questions, no sympathy, no disbelief. Just acknowledgement. Like I'd completed a shift someone else had abandoned years ago. I didn't respond, didn't sit down, didn't order coffee. Just turned and left. That afternoon, I packed what little I had and left Idaho behind without a single goodbye. Didn't even leave a note. But I took something with me. The rules. I don't know why. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. Even after the station was ash, even after the nightmare ended, or pretended to, I kept that single sheet of paper. Folded, worn, still faintly warm, somehow. I tucked it into my glove compartment. Sometimes I check it, make sure it's real, that I didn't make it up. 8 rules. Still printed in the same weird off-kilter type. Still signed by no one. This morning, when I checked it again, there were 9. Same faint red ink, same pressure like it'd been scrawled in a hurry, in fear. A new rule, one I never seen before. 9. If you ever leave, never talk about the station out loud. It still listens, it still remembers. I stared at it for a long time. Mouth dry, hands trembling. I hadn't said anything. Not out loud. Just typed, just written. That's different, right? Right? I'm not saying this out loud. You're just reading it. That's different. It has to be. Because if it isn't, if that counts, then something is already listening. When my mother, who was unhappily living with dementia, was found in her garage with the car running, my wife and I immediately took away the keys. Secretly, I slipped my mother the spare. Brooklyn and the Storm by Nicholas Leonard. I wish it rained forever. I wish it rained forever so I could see the specular reflections on her ocean floor face. I wish it rained forever so that I could experience her expression of timid horror, timid relief, juxtapose the thunder. I wish it rained forever so that I could see how everything glows light blue and dark blue on her face. Her worried face, just before she disappears. But if it rained forever, she never disappeared.
You've been watching the weather a lot. Do you think the gymnasium's gonna flood?
My mother asked when she came into the living room. I was sitting in front of the TV, glued to the Channel 5 forecast. Friday was what I was most concerned about. All the girls would scurry from the limo to the school, hurrying not to get their hair and dress wet after how long they spent getting ready. But my date wouldn't. No. If Caroline Glass, the weather woman, was right about Friday, May the 11th, 2018, then my date was going to be there. But she wasn't going to be flocking to the school for shelter.
You didn't want to ask anyone?
My mom asked while fluffing a pillow.
No, not really.
Well, I think it's still good you're gonna go.
My mother was saying, but I was too concerned with what Caroline Glass was saying.
It'll be good just to go and experience it. I remember my prom.
It wasn't that I was ignoring her. I was just focused on the forecast.
And we're going to have a chance of pretty heavy downpours Friday evening.
Caroline Glass explained, moving to the other side of the screen that displayed a map of the state of Illinois. It showed a time-lapse of those yellow and green splotches coming up. Looming over above Illinois was red and orange speckles in its digital storm. To people like my mom, that yellow blob which was creeping towards Illinois was just a digital representation of a storm front. But to me, it was Brooklyn's carriage. Every other girl in my grade was taking a limousine to Resurrection High, but she was taking a carriage. No, she was taking the storm. My mom ruffled my hair, stopping me out of focus.
Mom!
I can't believe no girls asked you, Luke.
If they had, I would have said no.
Luke, what's wrong with the girls at your school?
I looked at the yellow storm on the screen. Friday, 8 p.m., the screen read. Friday, 9 p.m., the storm still over Illinois. The storm completely covering Illinois.
Nothing's necessarily wrong with them.
I said and went back to the anchors at the desk.
It's just, I guess I'm not ready for a girlfriend.
I lied.
Luke,
My mom was smiling.
they don't have to be your girlfriend. Wouldn't it be special to just take a girl and give her a fun night? Make her feel special? Dance with her even if you don't want to? This night isn't really for the guys, you know. No school dance is.
I thought about Leah Child, who was in my math class with me. She had a crush on me in elementary school. I know this because she chased me around at recess a few times. She had big red framed glasses and always wore her brown hair back in a ponytail. I guess now she was cute, but there was the storm. Brooklyn and the storm. I first saw Brooklyn when I was in the 10th grade in a different math class, Miss Sweeney's math class, which was on the first floor of Resurrection High. The windows had a view of the parking lot and football field behind our school. It was raining so heavily on that day that I first saw Brooklyn that it seemed as though we had gone to school in the evening instead of the morning. Everything was dark blue and gray outside, clouds projecting their shadow down onto the football field and parking lot outside. One girl shrieked at the cannon fire thunder far away. But all there came next was a steady strumming of rain, which sounded more interesting than what Miss Sweeney was talking about. So naturally, I was looking outside more than I was at the whiteboard, and that was when I saw her. When I turned my head to look outside again after pretending to pay attention for what I thought had to be ample amount of time, she was standing there, hugging herself like one does when they're cold. For whatever reason, I immediately knew nobody but me noticed her. She was not looking for anyone's attention but my own. She was a brown-haired girl, though her hair was a dark chocolate color from how wet it was from the rain, and her eyes were struggling to stay open. She had small lips. She was in jeans, a kind of dark brown jacket with a scarlet shirt underneath, for I saw the scarlet where her jacket parted, crumbled around her folded arms. Lightning did not diminish or increase her features. She didn't flinch at this spasm from the sky, but she did when a corresponding crack of thunder called. It seemed to intensify her shivering. How little became of Miss Sweeney's voice while she and I looked at each other. And, oh God, I knew she was looking at me, looking for me. She knew I could see her. After the marvel of noticing her, I started wondering what she was doing in the rain, who she was, and why she wasn't rushing in. She seemed around my age, though maybe she was a junior, but there was a maturity about her face that the juniors and seniors in Resurrection High just didn't have. She looked like how I imagined a 20-year-old woman would look, but everything in her timid, rain-beaten eyes suggested that she was in high school. But why wasn't she in high school? Why was she out there in the rain? I almost spoke up, but why didn't I? I spent all of Miss Sweeney's class looking at her while she looked at me. I saw her trying to stifle those subtle convulsions that coldness sometimes creates. We looked at each other for so long that I started developing goosebumps as I imagined how it felt for her to have all that rain crawling down her face. How she seemed to forlorn that she didn't have any hood or shell for her face to tuck backwards into. For all she had were bangs, jungle-like, on her forehead, while the rest of her hair had the effect of a recent shower. No, there was nowhere for any of her to hide. All of her was to suffer every droplet, roar, and flash that the dominating sky let loose. I had never been so sad about a math class ending until the bell rang that day. I'd have to climb up to the 3rd floor of Resurrection High to spend another 40 minutes in Spanish, where I inevitably butcher the language. There's something spaceship-like about a school when it's rain outside. Those white walls really become white walls when the world goes dark outside. It makes it a somewhat exciting place to be, and I had more reason to relish in this. While climbing the staircase, I looked from student to student, freshman and senior, trying to see if anyone's hair was wet. I looked at people's pants, not for perverted reasons, but to see who was wearing jeans and who was not. Of course, people were wearing jeans, but none of them were the girl who had been staying outside in the rain. And when I reached the 3rd floor, while students convened at their lockers and crossed the hall, I looked from face to face, head to head, in search of her. She had to have been a student, for she looked familiar, and she seemed most likely to be a teen, but I couldn't find her. I was late to Spanish class that day because I walked up and down the halls of the 3rd floor, down the hallways with the orange lockers, and up the hallway with the blue lockers. I even got a strange look from Mr. Sherwood, a dean, when he noticed the concern on my face, which was probably too prevalent for a student to have. I have to end my search, though, and went into Spanish class where my teacher said she almost marked me absent. When the bell rang at 2 that afternoon, I did not take the bus home. Instead, I walked the perimeter of Resurrection High while the oak trees shed rainwater that their branches had collected. The sky was still cloudy, but sunlight was making a sick attempt to come out. I walked behind the school, walked through the faculty parking lot, and tried discerning which windows belonged to Miss Sweeney's classroom. It was difficult to do because I had rarely been on that part of the grounds, but I had finally discerned where she had stood. That spot felt haunted in the most wonderful way. I wish a clap of thunder would come back just to vindicate me, as though a reminder of the storm would prove to me that she had been staying there and that she had been looking at me. For a couple days afterwards, I chalked it up to sleep deprivation or some kind of boredom-induced hallucination. But what did I do when a thing of lightning strobed my room one night when I was in my bed? I got up and ran down the hall, downstairs, and out into the night. The trees along the sidewalk of our neighborhood were baying, bowing in a discoordinated pagan prayer. Their trunks did not permit them to fulfill their crazy movements that their branches wished to do. I felt a cool wind, but did not join in the maniacal worship. I smelt the smell of rain ahead. It's such a long smell that fills the human soul, the smell that never changes for us. I stood there on the pathway from the front door to the sidewalk, slowly starting away from my house. I remember it. I had a blue flannel pajama pants and a white t-shirt on, and my hair was still disheveled from the shower I had taken before going to bed. It's weird that I rushed out of the house, but that I was tiptoeing towards the sidewalk. I could have woken my mom up, but there was no one to wake up outside. Maybe there was someone to scare away, someone to startle. My nose tried to pull the storm cloud scent closer to me as I started walking down the sidewalk. And after looking over my shoulder, I started walking into the street. I heard it sprinkle down into the trees, giving all the leaves the salvation they tossed and turned for. And then it came down on the street. Immediately my eyelids started batting, and I wondered how she managed to stand so long in it. I looked up and experienced that hyperspace tunnel of rain, which was enchanting to look at, but almost impossible to enjoy because of how my face was punished for being raised into the storm. I brought my face back to level and looked ahead. It was perfect that no headlights broke the curtain of the storm. It was a gentle storm, the kind that has lazy curtains of gray and silvery raindrops. Even if she is a hallucination, so be it, I thought. I just want to see her again, I thought. And this thought was more so a prayer to the storm instead of a thought to file in my mind. One of those silly human thoughts we mail to things that cannot respond. She answered. How faint her mascara was, smudged like ink on a waterlogged letter. Her skin was just a tad tanner than mine. I and my mom are pale, and her face was a beige desert color of Mediterranean ocean floor with minimal dotting of freckles like speckles in the sand. I don't know if I was too entranced to have noticed her. I don't know if I had looked to my left or right to search for her. I don't know how or why, but she just appeared in front of me as though she had never had to appear at all. As though she was already and always been there. She was in the same clothes, same hair, and she was hugging herself. She looked worried but relieved, and now her face was close. I could see it. I could see the life in her eyes which no raindrops could manipulate. They looked at me and remembered when the world was dry, when sunlight used to work on our skin. We looked at each other long enough for my hair to get as wet as hers, and maybe almost as dark as hers. But my hair is blonde, so probably not as dark.
Hi.
I said above the rain. Her voice had a natural rasp to it.
Hey,
I'm Luke.
my name's Brooklynn.
She said in a little shout while lightning stamped on our faces.
What are you doing out here? What were you doing out there in the parking lot the other day at school?
I asked, but she didn't answer, so I threw my thumb over my shoulder.
Do you want to go inside?
Thunder cracked.
Not yet.
She said in a half shout, and this is when I figured her voice was naturally low, nothing capable of winning a race in the rain. I looked at her for a good few seconds before asking,
Do you like the rain?
I just get lost in it.
I said her name just to say it.
Brooklyn.
She tightened her own hug on herself, and she nodded, lips pouting and pursing with cold.
Are you a junior? Do you go to Res High?
I asked, and she didn't hesitate, but her face halted on some kind of expression before she answered.
I dropped out.
Oh, were you thinking of coming back in the other day?
I joked. Finally, whatever that timidness was holding her facial muscle hostage let go. She must have been about to say, "Ha-ha, very funny," but she didn't.
Look, you want to come back with me or go to your place?
I don't want to wake anyone up.
You won't. My mom literally sleeps through thunderstorms.
So, we'll just have to whisper?
Brooklyn, I have a feeling we'll be okay.
I said, and we started walking down the street. It was me who shepherded her out of the cold rain. I said, and we started walking down the street. It was me who shepherded her out of the cold rain. I was shrugging my hands in my pockets as if that'd keep me from getting wet. She was a hug yourself in the rain kind of girl, and I was hands in your pockets kind of guy.
Do you want hot cocoa when we get inside?
I asked when we were halfway to my house. I was scared she was going to change her mind, but I think that was just me being a nervous teenage boy. It's hard to tell what someone's thinking when they're wearing a constant shroud of rain.
Maybe.
She half shouted. I could see she was straining to see ahead, so I started to guide her with my hand on her back. She was solid, real. Her waterlogged hair tickling on my knuckles, and I felt my fingers pressing on her jacket, which concealed the dipping of her spine. And like an unapproving father, the thunder came down the entire street when I touched her. Still, we continued on into the rain. How hard it was becoming on her cheeks.
Here.
I said when approaching the lawn. She shimmied up the 3-foot steps and onto the porch, where the storm was an orchestral thing and not something that could touch us. So it felt as though we were breaking into an area designated for an audience. But it felt as though she belonged out there in the rain. It made the thunder sad, lower and mopey for her to be under some kind of shelter.
I'm not going to wake anyone up?
she whispered when we entered the foyer.
No, come on.
I said, tiptoeing into the kitchen.
Wait.
She hissed before I could turn the light on. Her voice was so much more raspy in a whisper.
I don't want to wake anyone up, I mean.
Her eyes were scanning the room, and I could see this only because of how the kitchen window was throwing the blue light of the storm on her face.
Wouldn't it be weird for your parents to wake up and see you've brought a strange girl into their house?
Are you strange? I'll just whisper.
Despite being inside, she was still hugging herself, and I noticed that this was a defensive position. She was like a lost chess piece, the maiden in the storm. What advantage would she have over the other chess pieces, like my mother, the queen, or me, the knight I hoped I was? But she was still soaked. I couldn't imagine how her hair looked dry. I couldn't imagine those dark chocolate brown eyes not having smudges of mascara below them, melted wrecks on her ocean floor face.
What were you doing out there yesterday?
I was looking for a bench.
A bench?
She nodded.
I think it's a memorial.
A memorial? At our school?
She nodded, stammering.
It was for my mother, but I think they removed it for some reason.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I remember that. What happened to your mom? We don't have to talk about it.
I think they removed it because I dropped out. Or something.
She sank into herself, and she wasn't hugging herself out of defense anymore, but out of timidness. We whispered in morning whispers, not twilight whispers.
Why don't you storm in? Demand they tell you what they did and why. Wasn't it just outside the school? Why were you looking in the faculty parking lot?
Because people would see me.
I saw you.
I wasn't planning on that.
So why were you looking at me like that the other day?
She waited before answering.
Because I don't know why, but I think you can help me.
Sure, I'll help you.
Thunder toned, how similar it was to an old big bell, like a conductor. A gust threw itself along outside, telling every passenger of the storm that their last stop was upon them.
I have to go, Luke.
Go home?
She nodded.
Thank you for letting me in.
Wait, how do I help you? Where do you live?
She started walking out of the kitchen, whispering.
I'll find you.
So this was her chess move, leaving and rendering me helpless while she left. I stood there a little bewitched as she walked back into the storm. It was sunny the next day, and I didn't see Brooklyn. After school, I stood in front of the bench that used to be the memorial. I was holding onto the strap of my backpack, and my hair was still very disheveled from the night before. I remember they changed it at the start of the school year because of some civil statement, but they were very hazy, and I only heard my mom mention it in passing. It was just a stone bench without a name now, and I wonder what Brooklyn's mom's name was. I looked around, but Brooklyn wasn't there. Again, I started to search for her in school, even though she said she had dropped out. Maybe she would sneak in and try to find me. Maybe she'd come back.
You've been spending a lot of time after school.
My mom mentioned the following week while I was helping her in her cafe. She runs a cafe on an intersection downtown. Serving people coffee and making sure I had good grades was her forte. I shrugged.
Well, I guess I'm just thankful for it.
She kinda laughed.
Thankful for school? I never thought you'd say that.
Yeah, well, it's growing on me.
You're a good boy, Luke.
I didn't say anything back. I was thinking of Brooklyn. I was teetering on realizing, but then realizing it would make it real. Has your heart ever broken for someone who wasn't real? What if your thought of the perfect person, your beautiful person, could exist so much until they're tangible enough to even fool the storm and the rain sticks to them? I was dry, wearing an apron in my mom's cafe, but I wanted to be soaked with Brooklyn. I wanted to have the rain pelting down on us. It's what I thought about while wiping down recently vacated tables, looking out the window and wishing to see her on the corner, but it was too sunny. She was pretty. She had singled me out. I had never been singled out like that before, not soulfully. She appeared in my hallway after we had a month-long drought. I was just getting out of the bathroom after waking up to pee when I walked back into the hallway and a flash of lightning revealed her. There was one window at the end of the hallway, glowing blue of course, and she was a silhouette. Her arms were folded and her hair was wet.
I let myself in.
She whispered, her expression suggesting that my presence was stalling some tragedy.
Where have you been?
I whispered. She didn't answer, but the rain coming down on the roof and crawling down the house was answering for her. This was the night I realized she only came when it rained. I didn't ask why. I didn't want to know why. I just accepted her.
Brooklyn?
I stepped towards her in the hallway.
Why can't I see you?
Oh, how she looked up into my face. My voice was shaky.
Can you be brave for me and come in the sunlight?
I pleaded in a whisper.
I can't, Luke. Why do you want me to?
Do you have to ask?
You have some kind of high school crush on me.
She half laughed.
Yes. Why me?
Her voice became even more rapsy.
You have a kind face.
I took a step closer.
Why is yours always wet?
She looked up at me as though I was the sunlight that could finally dry her. Her lips tasted like how rain smells. She was my first kiss. We vanquished the thunder but kept the rain. It lasted a year. Only when it rained, but she was always worth the wait. It broke my heart. It spoiled my heart. And I so badly wanted to know what it did to her heart. Junior year, May. I brought my tux into my mom's cafe with the biggest, dumbest smile on my face.
Blue?
She smirked.
Teal? Oh, Luke, oh my God, I should have chaperoned you.
Relax, Mom.
I was too happy. I put the tux in its plastic wrapping on the counter.
Luke, do you realize you'll be the only one in a blue tux?
I was still smiling. She was examining it, going,
Well, maybe it'll go well with your hair. Yellow and blue are good colors, right? What made you pick this, Luke?
I just like the color blue.
I said while thinking about how everything glowed blue whenever Brooklyn was near. Did I whisper that? Oh my God, my heart was so full of rain that I swear she could have walked in right into that cafe. But when I turned around at the sound of the little bell, it was a stout, beard-bellied man who entered instead.
And we're going to have a chance of pretty heavy downpours Friday evening.
Carolyn Glass had said. How my heart had its own thunder at the thought of that. Would every other student and teacher in the gymnasium see her with me? What dress would she be wearing? She didn't need a dress. Just those jeans, her brown jacket, and scarlet shirt. I drove myself to Resurrection High that night, leaving the house at 7:30 in my blue suit with my blonde hair ruffled. I had messed it up after getting in my car because my mom had gone overboard with the gel and combing. Brooklyn and I liked it best when our hair was wet, heavy, and unkept. My windshield wipers were sliding back and forth like crazy, and I heard all the puddles that my tires disrupted. I saw lots of limos at stoplights, saw how the red stoplights were blurring in the downpour. I saw the limos in my rearview mirror, their windshield wipers going too, and I felt her all around me, waiting for me, my prom date. Girls and boys were indeed hurrying to Resurrection High when I pulled into the student parking lot. I saw a faculty member in a yellow raincoat directing people where to park, but they completely missed me, probably because of how much that yellow hood obscures their vision. I got out of my car, probably with too much nonchalance, my hair accepting droplets the way flower petals do. Drip, drip, drop, on the strands above my forehead. I started towards the entrance of Resurrection High, past the memorial bench that no longer had a name. She was standing right outside the doors, hugging herself almost straitjacket style, while all the pretty girls skipped into the school, Holly and their boyfriends behind them. None of them seemed to care that Brooklyn wasn't all dolled up. Hell, they probably thought she was a faculty member.
You came.
I said, stopping beside her where the gutter was making lots of rainwater noise. She looked at me. Finally, for once she wasn't whispering.
I can't go in there.
Come on, you're with me.
Luke,
She was looking past me, though her face was still parallel to mine.
I want to spend the night there, at my bench.
Your bench?
I turned around, then back at her, and her playful expression bade me not to ponder further, so I offered my hand as though I was ready to walk her towards it. We walked out into the open air. I felt my shoulder pads sponge up the rain. With her hand in mine, I assisted her up onto the bench. She was standing up on it and looking down at me. Luckily, most of the students had gone inside by then.
What's your full name, Brooklyn?
I asked. I hadn't let myself ask this because part of me knew the answer would jeopardize what we had.
Brooklyn Bilski.
She said, thunder clapped, angry at the memory.
You're beautiful, Brooklyn Bielski.
I said, and she smiled. I walked her back and forth on the bench until it started coming down harder. I helped her down and we laughed because of how violent the storm was becoming. We went into the gymnasium where the lights were blue and danced to Selena Gomez's Love You Like a Love Song. She was beautiful. The way her eyes sparkled, the way her hair retained the storm. She retained all the beauty of the lighting. She swayed in the middle of the crowd, the wettest couple there, while thunder tried in vain to disrupt the heavy bass.
You know, it can't rain forever, Luke.
She said during the song's bridge, as if it was the only opportunity we had to face the truth. So I didn't speak. I waited for the chorus, for reality to submit to rain again, and all we did was sway. But we ran back outside again. I propped her back up on the bench, and she was laughing, wet hair down towards me. I only cheerfully proclaimed it because of how happy she looked, because of how much fun we were having.
Brooklyn Bielski!
I shouted above the rain.
This is your bench!
And she laughed too. But the next morning was sunny, and my lips were sore from kissing, the only proof I had of her existence. I looked her up on my Chromebook. and the following news story came up. Brooklyn Bielski, 17, a student of Resurrection High, was driving home from a friend's house Wednesday night when a drunk driver collided with her when turning right onto Anchor Avenue in Resurrection, Illinois. The news story was dated May 5th, 2006. I was not surprised at all. I read another news story dated March 2017 reading, "The family of Saul Miller has successfully filed to get the Brooklyn Bielski Memorial outside of Resurrection High removed. Miller was serving a 15-year sentence, but recently got released on good behavior. He attends AA meetings and says he's a changed man. But that accident he suffered in the spring of 2006 has tarnished his chances of starting anew." I didn't have to read further. The following Monday at school, I bursted into Dean's office, blurting the name,
Brooklyn Bielski.
and saw the immediate trouble start with Mr. Sherwood's eyes. You can imagine the kind of vigor I berated him with. My mom and no one else could have expected what movement started or why. But by June, the name Brooklyn Bielski was back on the stone bench outside of Resurrection High. Even the mayor got involved, and they made a big deal about it in the paper. I hadn't thought of the consequences. I was just thinking of Brooklyn and remembering how timid and scared she looked, how she hugged herself. It was such a weak sprinkle when I saw her for the very last time. It was in the hallway, of course, and it was actually light outside. She peered right in front of the window at the end of the hall with a deer in headlights expression. It hadn't rained since prom, so it was the first time we had seen each other since.
Brooklyn.
Luke, I came to say goodbye.
Goodbye?
And thank you.
I stepped towards her, asking,
What do you mean?
I can go now.
she said with an unsturdy smile.
It was so cold in the storm.
She cooed. Oh, but how she looked at me. I heard the fear in my own voice.
Where are you going, Brooklyn?
Beyond the storm.
You can't.
Next time it rains, step outside and raise your face to the rain. Let it hit your eyelids and let the droplets break on your lips. Those are my lips, Luke.
I think I was crying, but I kept all the squeals and sobs locked behind my pulsing lips. She gave a faint smile and did something no woman has ever done since. She raised herself on her tippy toes, closed her eyes, and kissed my forehead. And how she returned to her original height. She wasn't wet anymore. She wasn't crossing her arms out of a defense anymore, but out of some kind of cheerleader confidence.
Brooklyn.
Thank you, Luke.
She walked backwards and faded out of the window, and all I smelt was rain. I've been a driving instructor at Resurrection, Illinois for quite some time now, but I've developed a kind of weird reputation. Whenever it starts raining, I make my students pull over, I get out of the car and lift my face into the storm, and I catch the droplets on my lips while listening to the windshield wipers work behind me. I take my students up and down the street I used to live on with my mom, the street Brooklyn and I walked on. I swear she walked with me down that street. We go down Anchor Avenue, where I give my students a somewhat stern lecture about safety, and we drive by Resurrection High, past a Memorial bench, past the faintest smell of rain that's always there, the smell that makes me think about the rich, dark chocolate color of her hair when it was wet. We rushed my aunt to the hospital. So now she can get real medical treatment rather than all the pseudoscience home remedies she's been mixing up herself. But what's that sharp smell, and why are the doctors and nurses around her falling unconscious? And now the stories have come to an end. If you're still awake, well, I hope you fall asleep shortly. And the sounds that you hear in the background are going to take center stage for no more than 30 minutes to help you fall asleep or stay asleep. But if you are awake and want to hear more stories, I do have playlists for that as well. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.